This is Joe Mullings with the MRI Network, and today from Raleigh, North Carolina, Lauren Kesterson, president of MR Raleigh. And thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you taking the time out. And that's a MR Raleigh. I've been in the business since '89. That's a legacy organization down there.
It is, yes. My parents started the company in 1980,
Wow.
believe it or not. This is our 40th anniversary here in Raleigh.
40th anniversary. So the office has been around for probably longer than half of the MRI network members. How did that happen? How did that
Yes.
multi-generational thing happen?
Well, it's an interesting story. My parents were entrepreneurs. They had some restaurants here in the Raleigh area, and they had a young child at home. And that restaurant business just was not conducive for raising a young kid. And they discovered that those late hours, they didn't want to be at work. They wanted to be at home. So they started looking into franchises, and there was a management recruiter's office that was for sale, and they looked into it, and the rest is history. Here we are 40 years later.
Is there a focus of the office in particular?
There is, yes. We started as a manufacturing office, and that was really what we did for at least 20 of the 40 years. And now we've expanded into the pharmaceutical med device industries. We call that our life science team. We have manufacturing still, of course, that's a core part of our business. Excuse me, but we also have construction as a large part of our industries now. In fact, most of the recruiters in our office right now are working in our construction industries.
Yeah, and that those two industries, life science and construction, my personal opinion, as you know, my office is entirely med device. But life sciences has a tremendous near-term future and long-term future to it. And I believe construction as well has a very, very bright future because I think as we become more of a, I don't know, let's bring back the manufacturing in country and repatriate it and make things here. I think construction is going to have a very bright future to it. So,
One can hope.
right. Now, interesting. So I'm going through some history here. Nobody handed you the business. You started out as an admin research lead back in 1996. So what was that like? Working for entrepreneur mom and dad who were grinders because they came out of the restaurant business.
Yes, in fact, a lot of our dinner conversations were about the business. So I grew up listening to many, many conversations about what went on during the day, the successes, the hardships, everything. And really starting in high school, I would come into the office after school on the weekends. I'm going to date myself a little bit, excuse me, and admit that this was before people had computers on their desks. And the database at that time was index cards,
Mm-hmm.
3x5 cards.
Mm-hmm.
And my job was to put them in alphabetical order for
I
the
love it.
AEs
I
so
love
that
it.
when they came back into the office on Monday morning, they were ready to go.
I love it.
Yes. And as I got older into college, I actually went to college here in Raleigh. And that was a decision that I made because, as many people who know the history of MRI, they know that my dad had some health struggles. He had a brain tumor. And my senior year, going from high school into my junior or my freshman year of college, it was terminal. We knew that he had about 4 years. So I decided to transfer to North Carolina State University here in Raleigh, and took on a bigger role in the office, worked part-time through college. And in that time, we got a computer on every desk. So I played a large part in the training, in the administration, and really laying that process out and educating the office in how to use Windows.
Yeah.
And so at that time, the internet research role was brand new. I think it was me and maybe two or three other people in the network who were really taking on that role and trying to figure it out. And it was great. And I just fell in love with it. My plan was not to go into recruiting. Like everyone else I've ever interviewed about this industry,
That's right.
they had different plans.
It's a
You just kind of
crossroads.
fall into
It's a
it.
crossroads.
It is. You've got a neighbor or a buddy that is a recruiter and tells you a great story, and you decide that the time is right and you're going to try it out. My story's not a whole lot different there. Mine was a little bit different in that my parents had the business. My dad had some health issues, and I felt needed in the family business. But it got me just like it gets everybody else, and it's a wonderful industry. The relationship building and the ability to help people through some difficult processes and life changing decisions, just a hugely rewarding profession.
Yeah. Now you're part of the next gen model, is that right?
I am, yes, yes. Annette Worley and Pat Reynolds have put together this great group of owners, managers, and aspiring owners and managers into this next gen group. And it's been really a fantastic experience. A great opportunity to talk to a lot of other offices in the network. I think that's one of the benefits of MRI Network is that family feel that we all have with each other. When you get to it at the end of the day, we're competing against each other, but you put us on the phone together and we're going to do everything we can to help each other out.
Isn't that so mind blowing for people from the outside? We have rivals who are in the same industry as us, and yet that rival calls you up and asks you, "How are you doing this?" And you give the secret sauce to them without any problem. That's what's mind bending from the people from the outside who watch this go on.
Absolutely. I don't know where else you can find that, where you can find a true competitor. Or even, I've done this and I've had people do this with me. I'm thinking about hiring someone who has this experience, and we're thinking about going into a brand new dig. Talk to me about that. How does that work for you? What should we look out for?
Right.
And they give you the playbook
Right,
almost.
right, from their own industry. So, and for those that don't know,
Right.
a dig is discipline, industry, and geography, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So a dig is I'm going to open up a new desk, and then I'm going to call up somebody who does construction. Hey, you do construction? Yeah. I want to open up a desk. Tell me about it. And people are like, sure. How do you code your candidates? What do you do? What do you watch out for about the JOs? Are there any forms we can use? And they give them to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we give them to them.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
we do.
Yeah. So you came out admin research lead and then graduated university and then ops manager, VP of ops, and president now of MR Raleigh.
Yes, and that skips over a few finer points. I was a PC or project coordinator in that time frame, and also worked a desk. And those those were really great experiences. And as someone who was in the business before I worked a desk, it gave me some insights and um, I don't know. There's certainly challenges whenever you are ramping up and starting a new desk, and it can be frustrating, like in any sales position, whenever you are really having to build that foundation in that book of business. And I found myself coaching myself through some of those times whenever I would get discouraged. Okay, Lauren, this is call reluctance. You need to just get over it, pick up the phone, and keep going. So I'm thankful that I had the opportunity to work in the admin role, to work in the research role before I stepped into more of a sales role, because I'm not sure that I would have had success had that not taken place.
Yeah. So you've seen the industry. I joined it in '89 with MR, and it was even before fax machines, if we're going to date ourselves. We used to mail resumes. And what what are the biggest changes, and what has remained the same?
There have been a lot of changes. I would say the biggest change is in the way that we communicate with one another. And I guess not really the way that we communicate, but the way we key up that communication. So when I started and when I was getting ramped up, I could call into a manufacturing plant and ask to speak to the plant manager, and somebody would connect me. I didn't have to know their name. It was helpful if I did. My trick was having to get around that gatekeeper. Sometimes having to be creative because someone would answer the phone and sometimes they'd want to know why you were calling. And sometimes they'd be real inquisitive as to why you
Hmm.
were calling. And now it's a different experience. Now you've got to know who you're calling. You need to know what their title is. You need to know what department they're in. Oftentimes, you're not going to talk to a live person. You're just going to go through some voicemail system and leave a voicemail. And you're going to do that, 8 to 12 times, and then hopefully have a conversation with somebody. So I think it's the getting to the conversation that's the biggest change in the industry that I've seen.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, Technology is wonderful, and it's added a whole lot of benefits to the industry. There's a lot of information that we have at our fingertips now, but I think it's made actual communication between people a little bit more difficult.
Yeah. So you started early on the high tech side. You were one of the early internet research roles within corporate you shared. Where does technology and leading edge get defined by you today in the role you're in? Are you using LinkedIn aggressively? Are you doing marketing to drive an inbound business? What are you doing in regards to that tech?
That's a great question. Yes, we want to use every tool that we can to do our jobs better. We are so dedicated to our clients, to our candidates, and we are who we represent. So it's really important that we find the best talent out there. And the best way to do that is to use as many resources as we possibly can. Everybody in my office has a LinkedIn recruiter account. I know not all offices do that, but I think LinkedIn is a huge tool. It's a great resource, and a great way to be able to find out who is doing what in each company. There's lots of other tools that are out there. Zoom Info is another big tool. Everybody in my office has a Zoom Info account. Even though we've got somebody who is my VP of operations who really is in that research role and is fantastic in that role, everyone still has at their fingertips the ability to do a search and figure out who is in what role and who can I contact. Because when they get an opportunity and it's an urgent need, they want to be able to find the people right away. So that's critical.
Yeah, and on that one, I don't want that to go by. I always appreciated in the office an internet researcher or a researcher role. However, however, we all unwind data a different way, and we do what we call in our office pull the string. And if I give you three data points, and I give Matt in my office three data points, you're both going to dynamically within 7 minutes have an entirely different data set that is going to serve you well. So I push back at the general researcher role in organizations, and I would rather carve out time for the individual and give them the tools like you are so they can do it not only, in a timely fashion, but sort of the way that their brain works.
I think that's so true. And we all have different strengths.
Yep.
So I have some people that are phenomenal with technology and they can pull that string and find so much information.
Hmm.
And then I have other people who are incredible at their roles. They are so good at finding the right people for the right opportunity and bringing them together. But please don't make them get on technology. They really just do not want to have to go out and do that research. So my philosophy is more I want to meet my people where they want to be met. And so we are constantly talking to everybody in the office about what do you need? And the support that we offer is going to be very tailored to what that person wants and needs to do their business with the most success.
Love that. Meet my people where they want to be met. I love that. I'm going to steal that. Totally stealing that one. How are you managing through, or how are you projecting to manage through the next, let's call it the next year? Because I'm not going to say the next couple months. I think we've got a new game in town. How are you going to manage through the next year?
Yeah, that's a really tough question. And I'm a big planner. I'm somebody who is very goal oriented. Every year sit down, write out that goal, have a roadmap, have a 5-year plan. We break it down, we look at it quarterly, just I'm very driven by goals. Right now is not a wonderful time for people who are really driven by goals because everything has changed, right? The world's upside down. So for right now, those goals are just set to the side. Right now, my goal is to see my people through this time and to really weather this storm as best we can. We're not sitting on our hands. We're still out there in the marketplace, still having as many conversations as we can with people. But right now, it's the conversation that's the win. Right now, it's just connecting with hiring authorities, with candidates, finding out how they're doing, finding out what their plans are, and then sharing that information with other hiring authorities, with other candidates, and really trying to get through this. The rest of the year, that's tough to answer at this point because I don't know how long this is going to last. I hope we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Here in North Carolina, some of these stay-at-home restrictions are going to be lifted maybe at the beginning of May. So once that happens, I think then we can really start to put our heads together and start planning better for what the rest of the year really looks like. But for right now, we're just holding on to everybody as tightly as we can, and we're going to weather the storm.
Nice. So, you come from a legacy organization, and you've held just about every role in that organization and in the recruiting world, especially as it declares itself within the MRI family. New owner, and let's not make it a COVID scenario. New owner, first 18 months. What should they not get so wrapped around the axle on in their first 18 months?
Um, the weeds. I would say the weeds. For a new owner who is ramping up their own desk, right? Somebody who's just bought an office, they're starting out themselves, they're having to build that foundation. I think really focusing on that, on getting their own business healthy and up to a point where they have enough clients and they have enough of a candidate inventory that they can network with to really start to talk about, okay, what do I add next? Is it an admin person? Is that going to be the best investment? Because some salespeople aren't so great at details. They're not so great at the admin work. Maybe that's the best fit. Maybe it's a PC. Maybe they've got, a whole lot of clients that they're working with and they've got a lot of opportunity and they just can't meet demand. I think it's hard to say before they get their business ramped up what the next step should be. I think really the first step is build your foundation.
Yeah.
Get your feet under you and then figure out step two.
Yeah. I think that's sage advice. Too many people get caught up in trying to build a business by building a business where you've just got to, everything works when you build, everything. Because then that gives you the dry powder to make a decision on how you run your desk. And I just chatted yesterday with, I think last year he did $700,000 as a single desk, and he's in the Carolinas. And he doesn't want anybody in his office, right? So his choices are going to be different. And there are others who are building offices because they want to build a legacy and they want to get off a desk as soon as possible, but they're learning the business. So I think you nailed it there is let's build first and then decide where to go from there.
Yeah.
And anything else before we close out that I didn't ask you that you'd want to share with the network, with people maybe who are even thinking about entering to the MRI family?
Wow, what a great open question. Um, yeah, I think one of the values that as a management team we bring our office is the ability to reach out to a network and talk to a lot of other offices across the country, some in similar industries, some in different industries, about what's going on in the marketplace. What are you seeing? So that we're not just limited to our little world, right? We connect with a whole lot of people. We have a whole lot of conversations. But when you amplify that, multiply it, it's a great data point to be able to bring back to the group. And so I think for new office owners, lean on the network. but even other offices. I think just being part of something that's bigger than us is an incredible opportunity.
Mm, really well put. Well, Lauren, I appreciate your time. I admire the business that you and your family have built, and thanks so much for sharing the history of it with us.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
You bet. And take care of yourself, and I hope to see you soon.
You too.
Great. This has been Joe Mullings with the MRI Network.